grateful for this opportunity to have these two dynamic women who have been part of the civil rights movement for many years and who have a history to share with us all that we can learn from. And so we do welcome you to Pleasant Grove Baptist Church. This church, we've just celebrated our 101st anniversary in March this year. And last year was our 100th anniversary, which is a milestone in and of itself. And so we are one of several churches within the north end of Detroit that has celebrated their century mark. But the one thing I've always been mindful of is that our church has been a part of this community, a very vibrant part of this community. Many members back in the 60s and 70s, they were able to walk to Pleasant Grove for worship and for ministry. And so we have decided to still be a part as far as being engaged with this community and helping others to continue to grow in their faith, as well as to deal with social justice issues that we find ourselves confronting with each and every day. Just a couple of housekeeping areas to let you know. Restrooms are that way. There's one going to on my right, your left is in the back. And also feel free to use the pastor's study restroom. Our downstairs is closed at the moment. We are dealing with some issues with the fellowship hall. And so those restrooms are off limit, but we have restrooms in the back as well as to my left, your right, in the pastor's study. Finally, I just want to say it's truly an honor and a blessing to know that we are in this struggle together. And so I want to say to everyone, we all belong. We all belong here. We all have a place here. And we hope that as we find our place, as we find an opportunity to be together in this struggle, to know that we are stronger together than we are separated. So again, welcome, welcome, welcome. And remember, we all belong.
I shouldn't have to say it. It should be clearly obvious. I belong.
If you can see me, the humanity in you, there is just as much humanity in me. I belong.
I'm not here as an object or as a means to you making your ends. I belong.
I exist as you exist, with the right to righteously coexist.
I belong.
I count if you count. I matter because my matter matters.
I belong.
For this, we are not competing. It's not a race. We're all just in the human race. I belong.
I have the same right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
I belong.
If all men are created equal, I refuse to let you make me lesser than your men.
I belong.
And if you cannot see me, then you'll hear me. With the ballot that I put in, I belong. I count if you count. I matter because my matter matters. I belong.
I vote to say my matters matter. I belong.
I can vote. I will vote. Remembering the time I couldn't vote.
I belong.
I can vote. I will vote. Remembering the time when I couldn't vote. Because I belong.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, let me give or extend my thanks to Pastor Forsyth for allowing us to come into this space and to make our presentation. And we just want you to know we're extremely grateful. We wanted to come to Detroit, and we reached out, and you immediately said, come on in. You're welcome. And as you said, and as the said that was played, you belong. You come on in just as much as anybody else. And that's what that video is really all about. It is an extension of what is essentially a demand that says to anyone and everyone that would try to cause us or move us to believe differently, to help them to understand that we know just as much as it does to anybody else, this thing we call the democracy belongs to me just as much as it belongs to you. I belong just as much as you do. I matter if for no other reason, just because I have matter. I matter because my matter matters. And so I belong. And so when we make our presentations, generally this is where we start out. The name of the organization is When You Vote, I Win. And it's named for many reasons that I won't really dig into on this afternoon. But for the most part, our audience is young folks. Young folks. We try to focus on high school juniors and seniors, especially in Michigan, where we have the laws that allow for 16 and 17-year-olds to be pre-registered. We know that they will be the up-and-coming voters. Many of them will be voting in the very next elections. And so we start there by helping them to understand that even when it comes to the ballot box, it is where you are making the expression that I belong. This belongs to me just as much as it belongs to you. And so we expand and we extend that conversation, but we like for people to know where the conversation actually began. And so we'll get further into that as we move further into this program. But we're going to move to another video that will show you some of the work that we do in the high schools.
We are setting up what an actual polling place will look like. They will also know exactly how the system works.
Good morning, Northwestern High School, mighty coach. And yes, you do belong. This is about participation.
Oftentimes you'll hear vote, 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 vote. But what are you voting for? You need to be educated, and you question what we do, you question what we say, and then you make decisions based upon your understanding, and you vote your interests.
You all are on the doorstep of being handed over a power. We are in the business now of creating the world that we're about to hand over to you. And much of what that world will be based upon how we go out and we vote.
This is about Mr. Thomas's aunt on Edmund Pettus Bridge being beaten in prison.
What my aunts did at 14 and 16 years old is so that you can understand that as young people, you can change the world too, just like they changed the world. So much of the power resides at a state level.
Knowing and understanding what the word disenfranchisement means. A person or group of people stripped of their power.
This is about voter suppression and how they keep us from exercising our right to vote.
So what they did is they imposed things like literacy tests. So you had to pass a test if you wanted to vote. You had to count the number of jelly beans in the jar, and even if you by chance got it right, it was still wrong. They had things that were known as poll taxes. All of that started with Jim Crow laws in 1865. 1963, approximately 250,000 people take part in the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Martin Luther King gives, for the second time, because it was done first in Detroit, his I Have a Dream speech as the closing address in front of the Lincoln Memorial. This history does not happen in a vacuum. And what happened yesterday, it is determinative on what we do today, and it will affect our tomorrows.
In order
All right, and so that is a little bit of the work. We can move to the next slide, that's fine. That we do when it comes to When You Vote, I Win. That was at Northwestern High School. And so, again, when it comes to that work, something that we understand is that this work has to continue to move. It has to continue to move. And so for today, what we're going to introduce to you is a video that talks about the work that my aunts did in Selma in 64 and 65. And when I speak of it today, what I'm talking about is a movement that takes place in a moment. This is a movement. We're going to see in the video that will be coming before you what will be a movement in the moment in time, but we will also see how with their lives that movement had to continue to move. This is not just about 64 and 65. Their story is not just about 64 and 65. We will see that moment, but we have to understand that this is a movement in a moment. If we allow for the movement to stay in our minds, stay in our hearts, in 64 and 65, then we have failed. We failed. This that we will see will again be a movement in a moment, but it is a movement that must keep moving. The reason why many of the conditions that we're dealing with today is because the movement happened, but it didn't continue to move. It is a movement in a moment, but we have our moments now. We will see that movement, but I want you to understand that it's not just about 64 and 65. This is about a movement that has to keep moving.
It was not easy. It's not easy to remember. I have not walked across that bridge since Bloody Sunday.
We did not obey their rules. Stop marching, go home, go home.
The nation was shocked by the brutal attack.
There were no school counselors. We didn't have counselors. We buried it.
There's still a lot of black people from the times that hasn't told their story. There's stuff that's missing in history.
We demand that you allow us the same rights that you allow to every other citizen when it comes to participating in democracy.
You don't really see what's waiting for you on the other side until you're far too ahead to turn back.
What happened to us back then is happening again today.
Born in Alabama. Now, my daddy had an 8th grade education, so he would pull a chair up to the radio and he listened. He knew all the things of the world because he sit there and listened to the radio. He really wanted, they all wanted to vote in the neighborhood, but he really wanted to become a registered voter.
At the age of 7, I didn't understand sharecropping. He had a cotton field, and he would have to give the money to a white man, and somebody else is collecting the money for your work. Well, there's something wrong with this picture, but you accepted that only because you didn't know any better. But it really hit is when my parents tried to go register to vote.
They tried for a very long time to become registered to vote. Anybody of color that tried to register, they were degraded. People had different tests, guess the number of jelly beans in the jar, naming every county in Alabama. Some got through and registered. They even sent them to the wrong locations to vote. and their vote never got counted. Those were the things our parents were facing, and they came back, disappointed.
And that was a hard thing to watch them be humiliated. I'm too young to vote. I'm too young to register. And you wonder, what can I do to make it better for them? We had to walk to school every day.
Everybody's in the same room, sitting around a wooden stove. We were 2 years apart from school classes, so, I didn't hang with Denise.
She didn't want to hang with me.
We didn't get together like that until later on. I spent time in Snow Hill, where I went 3 years, and there, things were a little different. I had different opportunities, like they had a band, and I was a majorette, home economics, a music teacher, other avenues of life that we didn't know anything about. So when I got to Selma, I was really a rebel right then, we were ready to get into things. We were smart kids, but we ran around. You don't hear about it, but Selma had a bus. It wasn't a big bus like the MARTA in Atlanta or anything, but it was 25 cents to ride. They came around in the neighborhood. Some of the older people took the bus and went right to the back of the bus. There was a place that had hamburgers, and we had to go to the window. It was like 2 miles outside of the city of Selma, and there's nobody on the bus but us. There's no seats taken, but we still could not sit. Why do we have to go all the way to the back? And that was when we decided we weren't going to the back, and we got kicked off. We told our parents, and so they stopped going on the bus. So in turn, the bus stopped running. SNCC came into town,
and they started passing off flyers and things at school and around the neighborhoods,
solicited kids at all schools in the area and
inviting us to the meetings.
Somebody is in town. He's looking for students to march for the Voters' Rights Act, and that was John Lewis. Denise was younger. My mother did not want her to go, but if she went with me, because I was the oldest, we both had to go together and to stay together, or she became connected to my hip then. It's like I was to watch after her.
And I was kind of shy, but this was something that I thought I just gotta do, I need to do.
Everything was happening at the Brown Chapel Church, all the mass meetings. We had instructions telling us what could happen, what may happen, how to protect yourself, trying to instill in us that it was a nonviolent organization. We weren't just put out there to do whatever. It was very well structured.
I didn't know what to expect.
Of course, our school said we could not take part.
We wanted to go and march one day at school, and the principal wouldn't let us go. So Alice and I had a conversation that evening or that night. When we go to school tomorrow, we're gonna knock on all of the doors and get the students and go downtown Selma, and we're gonna march. So we did that, and all the kids were coming out of their rooms, and that's when the principal got on the PA system and said, if you all don't get back in your room, you're gonna be expelled. So we obeyed and went back to our classroom. Nobody wanted to be expelled. But then, fate would have it, the principal went downtown Selma that same day and got beat on his head, and came back the next day, and over that same PA system, he says that anybody that wants to go march, you're free to go. And from that day, it was march after march after march after march.
So, we were young, we were fearless kids. Sit-ins, courthouse, wherever we were sent to demonstrate, we got arrested there. Load us up on buses. They'll take us to the local jailhouse, keep you for a few hours, and let you go.
Every time we went out, every time they locked us up. We went to jail every day.
Boys were treated a little harsher. My daddy never went. My mother took us there. More young girls participated. We were trained not to fight back. If they hit you, you had to endure. And a lot of boys could not take that. They wanted to fight and they knew that. As the groups grew, they started using like a outcry to get you on the bus. It got bigger, the crowd got bigger. The students became plenty. Now they don't have enough places to put all the students at one time.
Locked us up in the community center, 200 or 300 people in there. They used chains to lock the doors from the outside. But still, there was no fear because I'm going to see this to the end. But this one day, they had buses there waiting for us, loaded us on the buses like we were cattle.
And we were taken outside of Selma, out of town, which was the first time that had happened, to a prison camp.
Or about 10 miles outside. Nobody knew where we were.
They had the prisoners move out of the cells, move out in the courtyard with their mattresses.
When we got to the prison camp, they took our fingerprints. And the guy that did my fingerprints, he said, Venice, you know, this is going to Washington, D.C. This is going to follow you for the rest of your life. And I said, if I leave, that's going to follow me for the rest of my life. I'm not going. I'm going to stay here.
It didn't scare us at all at first. The second night, we realized things are real serious. And nobody knows where we are. Nobody's coming to get us out.
A toilet in one corner and one in the other corner. All of the girls were in this room.
I knew my little group from my school. There was about 6 schools in the county and then one big school downtown. We didn't know each other. And of course, when we went out every day, we didn't go out dressed as if we weren't coming home.
With the clothes on us that we had, we didn't have any jackets or anything like that. We used our bodies for the heat, but we stayed on that cold concrete floor for 4 days. We sang, prayed, talked, we would do anything to piss them off.
Yeah, they begged us to be quiet and stop singing, and as long as we did that, the guards could not go home. So.
Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me. Before
guards kept telling us, they'll let you go if you just be quiet and stop singing and stop doing that. Stop chanting. They just wanted to make a statement, but it wasn't working out that way. And then we would go into name, ain't gonna let Jim Crow turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. We started trying to put our heads together, and one girl did say she had asthma. So she faked an asthma attack, and they put her in a car and took her back, dropped her off at Carver Home, right across the street from the church. And I heard him when he got back and said she ran like a jackrabbit, went to somebody's house and told everybody where we were.
They didn't know we were dead or alive or what they had done with us.
3 nights, and that 4th day is when they rescued us. They came to bail us out. John Lewis and all of the other dignitaries came there. We were told that that fingerprint would be destroyed and it would not follow us anywhere, and we have no record of arrest. They made them destroy all of those files. They were already kind of planning a march to the Capitol, going to Montgomery. One of the young men, Jimmy Lee Jackson, got killed, and he was from a town that's not too far away. So after that, I think that it escalated.
And at that time, we didn't really know how many people were going to go. So everybody came with their stuff.
We were going to march. The Board of Education, the superintendent for the schools was saying, you cannot let your children out of school to march. They cannot march. But march was going to be on a Sunday. We were excited. We were getting ready to now do something big. We prepared for that march. Mom went out and bought us a pair of shoes from the local store, and she gave us socks. Felt really good leaving the church. No idea of the magnitude of what we were faced with. We didn't have all the information they had that, you know, they told us what might happen. We didn't know the legalities of what had gone on or how it was planned or anything. We just knew that we were going to be non-violent, we weren't going to fight. So when everybody left, was in good spirit to march to Montgomery, you know, to march all the way.
Well, leaving Brown Chapel Church and you can't see what's on the other side of the bridge, singing.
You know, we're thinking that we're on our way to Montgomery, we're gonna march.
They allowed us one side of the street for the march across the river on one lane, and when we got to the top, the troopers were way down to the bottom.
All of these men on horses would whip the cow prods, and it was the drugstore owner, the grocery store owner was recruited.
They were deputized to do this job.
Some people behind could not see what's before us. And when they said stop and turn around, and we refused to turn around, it was just a full charge on the whole group.
As soon as we stepped off the bridge was when we got the blasts of tear gas. And I think I must have got a full blast.
It was nowhere to go. That's when Denise and I separated.
Everything just went crazy at that point.
Things just scattered, people got hurt, people ran in all directions. This was real.
A lot of people ran toward the river or the water to get away from the tear gas.
The horses and the billy club, the whips, tear gas. None of us expected to be that bad.
I ended up under the bridge, laying down, overcome with tear gas. And I think that was the first time I got so angry.
What happened, but at that time, when I came to, there were two guys carrying me.
I don't remember ever getting that angry before, but what I said in my anger, and I said it, I spoke it, that I will fight more.
That night, we went back to the church to gather up our stuff that was scattered on the ground, getting ready for the next march that we're gonna do. Then Dr. King came to town.
I had never seen that many people in my life. People of all color, all walks of life that came. It was like, wow, you know, it's like all of these people came from everywhere to participate in the march. They were now trying to get a legal permits.
We went to the top of the bridge, and of course they were there waiting for us at that time. So Dr. King said, we're gonna all kneel and we're gonna pray.
We kneeled and prayed, and then we turned around and went back
to the church. And then it came the next 2 weeks after that, the next Sunday, is when we finally made it across the bridge and the walk from Selma to Montgomery.
They only selected 300 people. And I just sitting there like, you know, how did we get in the 300? I don't know. It's like I didn't raise my hand, but here we are, you know. Had plenty of socks and powder.
There were supporters on one side of the highway, and there were people that were against us on the other side of the highway. Of course, they were there calling us every name that they could possibly call us.
During the march from Selma to Montgomery, we did have National Guards that were supposed to be, you know, protecting us. But as we marched by them, they would spit. Not on us, but just spit on, you know, on the ground.
Some of them would spit.
Yeah. So you knew what they meant.
We had a break-in at the camp. We slept outside on hay. At one place, a college brought out like blankets and stuff like that. And after the third campsite, I was weary because it was wet there. That was almost to Montgomery. That's where I broke down because it was cold and wet out there sleeping on that grass, on that hay. It was cold, but I woke up and I was fine and kept on.
You know, we didn't have sleeping bags. Yeah.
I cried that night, that last rainy night at that campsite did me in.
I think we met up the next day to go to St. Jude so we could all go to the Capitol.
You know, you talked about how you know you got power when you walked in to Montgomery, that people were waiting for you. Not that we got much recognition or anything afterwards, because other politicians, they take over there, and we were busy trying to get back home because that was a long walk.
I just could not wait to get home. It was like we did it. It's like you just take a big breath and you just think about what you did.
That following few months, I was out of school. This was March, and in August, they passed the voters' right. And we had to go back to school. We just kind of sat on what we had done and waited to see what was going to happen. And
when they heard about it in the neighborhood, there was a man lived next door. He had a pickup truck, and he put the chairs on the back of the pickup truck and picked up everybody who did not have a way to get downtown to vote. To see them, it was something big had happened. It was like a weight that lifted me, because now I went back to school, buckled down, and did my senior year to graduate. You know, it's back to normal. Normalcy never was the same as it was before. It was like a new normalcy.
It was a hallelujah, amen day when that happened, that they finally could go register and vote.
Freedom, 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 freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom over me.
This is what this is about. It's about a fight for the right to vote. Even with having two aunts that were a part of that experience from beginning to end, it was not just the 3 marches. There were protests, there were arrests, there were detentions, there were all.
And how I started talking, over 50 years of not talking, was in the church, where she was having a Black History program, and she wanted me to come, and I'm in my shell, it's like, I don't do that. And she said, but you just did. I said, no, I said, I don't speak. She said, but would you just come? And with me going there, she took it and ran with it. My first article, that was the 50th anniversary. That was the first time anybody would listen.
what they call a celebration, I made it clear I wasn't celebrating, I was remembering. And that was the first time I talked about it.
There were no school counselors. We didn't have counselors. I just started talking about this, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago. I had a friend that said, "Why didn't you tell me? I never knew that about you." Because I could not talk about it. So I understand the trauma that kids can have, how much it can eat you up inside.
It doesn't take much for me to tell you now.
Because of what's happening now. Because we're going backwards.
We accomplished what we set out to accomplish.
I think what we did made a big difference. Do I feel betrayed? Yes. You all don't understand. When we went to a water fountain that said colored, whites only, you've never experienced that. That's why voting to you does not matter. It meant something to us because we knew that we had to do something to remove those signs that said black, white only, colored. They didn't even say black, colored. That's what we were called. We were colored. Your parents and grandparents, great-grandparents, they went through that. You haven't. That's why you don't think your vote counts. That's why you don't think you need to go to the poll. They're trying to take that away from you. They're trying to take us back. We don't want that. You need to go to the poll. Go to the polls.
Yes, there are crooked politicians out there. There are quite a few. If you don't vote, you're not going to get that person out. You have the ability to become a politician so people can trust you.
Because America has always understood the power of the ballot, who should be allowed to vote? Who should be allowed to vote? Well, if we let poor folks vote, then they will dilute the power of the rich.
I think some of us might have let our guards down. They are losing their majority. It's control.
Our heads were buried in the sand.
My aunts were foot soldiers who marched from Selma to Montgomery for the right to vote.
Yeah.
That's why I traveled from Detroit to be here today to demand the Senate to vote no on this obvious segregation bill. People of color, indigenous people, and women, those who fought the hardest to obtain the right to vote, will be impacted most by this bill.
Yeah.
The SAVE Act harkens back to the times when those in power never wanted certain Americans to be able to vote. We need a democracy that works for all the people.
More people are coming together and speaking up. Their ideas are going to be different than ours. They're going to do things different than we did them. Let's get behind those people.
At what point did you realize that you had not just the ability to do something, but the power?
When you realize you have the power, it's when somebody else started acting scared.
Mm-hmm.
They were afraid of us, and what we were doing, it was too many of us.
Power is in numbers.
In numbers and determination.
Yeah.
You're not too young to start preparing yourself to lead this country, to be a part of what happened in your city, your state, in the United States. Be a part.
People sacrificed. People gave their lives for us to be able to vote.
It really opened up my eyes. I never knew. These type of things I never knew about.
Because like school don't teach us like that.
Because of all that has happened.
It shows me that's what I should do too if I feel like something's not right.
So we owe it to ourselves, to our ancestors, to leave that legacy and respect it and honor where we're going.
Built off of the legacy of the Harriets and the Douglases, the Turners and the Truths, understanding that we are not getting here without the price that was paid and what was accomplished on that bridge. We got some work to do, because this is about y'all. It's about y'all got now. You got now.
The marching and protesting that's going on right now, it's scaring some people. There's too many people out there. Too many people of all color, all races. And we keep doing it, we have the power. They were afraid of us like we weren't real.
We were soldiers fighting for what we believed in.
Prepare yourself. Keep your democracy.
There is an arc, a moral compass, charting freedom's wax and wane. Sometimes we're startled how that arc allows some things hard to explain. But when the cause we fight is right, no matter what, we must persist. That arc is long and bends toward justice when we resist. Oh yeah.
There is an arc of moral compass, charting freedom's waxing way.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes we startle how that arc allows some things hard to explain. But when the cause we fight is pure, we can't let go because we're sure. The arc is long and bends towards justice when we endure.
Oh, Selma,
as I said before we started the documentary, and hopefully you all enjoyed it, but something that I told them when we gathered for the premiere is that it was not just a gathering for the sake of folks being entertained. It is our hope that when folks view this, they find it entertaining, but our goal is not to entertain. And so included in our impact statement, it talks about what you can do. And some of the things that it includes is that you can share the film with friends and family directly via email, text, social media, blogs, however you can share this video. You can host a free screening. Beginning July 17th, you will be at liberty to set up screenings however you see fit to help people feel connected in their efforts to inspire voter turnout, to protect voter rights, and move legislation to assure that people have the right to vote. It is free, and it will soon be available to everyone, and it is easy. You can make use of the film and charge admission or pass the hat to raise money for your local efforts. You just need a community space or your living room, wherever you are. You can screen from your YouTube link and then host the conversation and action afterwards. Again, this film is about the movement in the moment, but to assist with a movement that needs to keep on moving. And so at this time, what we're going to do is we are going to impanel our two Selma foot soldiers that were featured in the film, and we will allow for Q&A along with the one person from our production crew that helped to bring this to pass. We're going to bring them up and allow you to engage in a Q&A with them. And so we're going to start with the first person, which will be Alice Moore. Alice Moore, again, is one of my father's youngest sisters. She was the 16-year-old that you saw in the film, and one of our first Selma foot soldiers who was featured in that documentary, Alice Moore. And then we also have the 14-year-old that Aunt Alice said became attached to her hip. And that would be Denise Jarnigan Holt. She was the 14-year-old in the film. And as you saw, we hear the story. One of the reasons for the story being produced is that we hear the story from the perspectives of so many of the faces that you saw out front. But these were some of the leaders in the background. As they said, we were the ones that were going around knocking on doors. We were the ones that were recruiting people. Along with everything else, they were leaders in the movement. And one of the things that Aunt Alice said at the end is that she said, we accomplished what we set out to accomplish. They did. They got the Voting Rights Act passed. And so now the question is, you know, what is it that's in front of us that we need to accomplish? They're still on the battlefield with us. But what is it that we need to accomplish? What has happened in the gap that's made it so that now folks are comfortable with taking us backwards? They accomplished what they need to accomplish. And so I'm also going to introduce other folks that were a part of the production crew before we go into the Q&A. This person coming up, feel free to disregard him. I think, yeah, that one. That is me, and when we got into this, we were going through the process, and they said, Charles, you're the producer. Now, I didn't even know what a producer does, but that's what I became, and so whatever that was, that's what I did. Then we have one of the people that was one of our first filmmakers and actually kind of introduced us to many of the other players in this. Her name is Deirdre Roney. She was not involved in the making of this particular film, but the I Belong that you saw in the beginning, she was the producer for that particular film, and really what jumped us off into the quote-unquote filmmaking space. So she was one of our filmmakers, and she was with us on at the premiere event. Then we have, I'm gonna have to call them as I see them. Okay, we have Elisa Liddell, who was one of the co-executive producers. We have Holly Mosher, and I hope we changed her name to the correct spelling. We have not done that yet. Holly Mosher, and both of these folks, as well as Deirdre, they're out in California. This is how far this work extended. Even when it came to I Belong, Deirdre from California hired a film crew here in Detroit, and I Belong is a poem that I wrote. She heard it and she said, I need to put this on film. I need to capture this. And so she hired the film crew and here locally and had them find people and go to different landmarks in the city of Detroit and just recite lines from that poem that I wrote. But all of those folks are in California. Then we have Ples Moore. Ples Moore is here locally. It just so happened that we were looking for somebody to come into the space and help with the production. And Holly in California, so he said, I know this guy named Ples Moore in Michigan. And I know Ples Moore. Ples Moore worked right up at Southfield. And so it just shows you how small the world is. But Ples Moore was the co-producer. And then we have one other person, like I said, he's in the room with us, and I'm gonna bring him up. This is Daniel Land. He was the director, editor, and this word I stumble over, cinematographer. And so Daniel, I'm gonna ask him to come up. So if you have questions for my aunts, as well as for Daniel from the production perspective, we're going to open up the room or the floor for you to do that now. Anyone have questions? I'll come to you. Now, you all know I just dominated the mic. Now, I'll ask my questions, but if you have questions, anyone have any questions for any of the folks that are here? Okay, I'm going to start it off, and we'll get this going. And one of the questions that I ask often is, and this is for my aunts, how do you feel about where we are compared to where you were when you accomplished what you accomplished? How do you feel about where we are when you look at all of the things that are going on in our social and political environment? How do you feel about what you're seeing happening today?
Well, of course, we're very disappointed after working so hard, fighting so hard. And we are at a point now where it's hard to get people to do what they need to do. And they don't believe it because when we started doing this, people didn't want to hear us talk about it. They didn't want to hear that old stuff. Well, that old stuff has come back to bite us, and we didn't want to hear about it. So right now, I feel so anxious to get somebody to listen to somebody, and I especially like to work with the young people, the young teenage boys and girls, but you know, it should be the girls more now because they don't want women to vote anymore. So it's very disheartening to see things that are not being carried out or thought about, or like it's not phasing a lot of people. So it makes me, you know, we are not as feisty as we used to be, but we still move. We still move, we still got energy, God still give us breath. So as long as that happens, we have to keep telling our story.
Well, that's really a hard question because I ask it all the time. When you look at the polls and how many people show up, you have more that don't show up than the ones that do show up. They didn't feel what we felt. They did not go through anything like we went through. So as far as the young people are concerned, even some adults, 30, 40 years old,
It doesn't concern them because they did not go through anything. They don't think anything is wrong. It's not, they're not going to feel it until it really hits them. They're asleep. I think it was John Lewis or somebody said, you need to stay woke. But not, they're not woke. And they have no interest, and that bothers me so bad because they don't have any interest in going to the polls. A lot of young people you can talk to, oh, I'm not going to vote. Why am I going to vote? They're not doing anything for me. Why are you going to sit down and want somebody to do something for you? You need to go to the poll, vote. You need to be educated so you can get in a position and make the changes that you think you might want to see, or make those changes. Otherwise, sitting back, not doing anything, only thing that means is what you're saying is true. It is going to continue to be that way until we can set a fire under these people and make them go to the poll. They said this event today was a free event. You would think that you would have seen the house full, but this tells me there's no interest. They are not interested in what's going on because they can still right now go to the store, buy their Louis, get their nails done every week, get their hair did, as we used to say. So it doesn't interest them. They're not the ones that are going to the store buying the groceries. They're not realizing that the groceries that they bought 2 years ago, or their parents bought 2 years ago, have tripled in prices. They don't know that, and their parents are not talking to them. They're not telling them that you know why these prices are so high now compared to back then. It's because we as a people are not going to the poll to try to do anything to get it changed. So I really, I preach, it's like preaching to the choir. Nobody wanted to hear our story back then, and they're surely not interested in hearing it now. But we're going to keep marching like soldiers until somebody listens or somebody can wake the young folks up so they can go to the polls.
Thank you. Pastor, you had a question?
I do. And so maybe it's a two-part question. How hard was this on your parents to see their daughters to be engaged in something like the civil rights movement? And what was the most difficult thing for the two of you as you found yourself engaged in that movement at your young age during that period in time?
I think it was hard on them, but you would never know. My mother was the one that took us and picked us up. My daddy went the other way, and it wasn't because he was not interested, but everybody know back in those days, the male would not have survived. They didn't, and they couldn't be nonviolent. We had a lot of schoolmates, the boys. We had more girls than the boys because they could not. They were ready to fight. If you hit them, they were ready to start fighting back. So it was like no fear, no fear. Every day you got beaten, you wanted to go back because you were upset because they beat you the day before. It's like we still can't fight back, but we could aggravate it by going back. And it's the aggravation, and I saw it. I could see it on them. It aggravated them to keep seeing all of these students come back every day after they've done what they've done, and here we are again in front of their face that they got to do it. And they had to work hard because with those students, they had to have more people. That's why Denise says in the movie, those guys were not policemen. They were our drugstore owners, our grocery store owners. They didn't have enough people to hold us down. So they deputized every white man in the town that they could get to come and get on a horseback, put a mask on, and attacked us on Bloody Sunday. They didn't have enough people to do that. So there was really no fear. You know, my mother went by herself, brought us, and went back home by herself. After she dropped us off, then she come back and pick us up. You know, so she was fearless.
My biggest fear was afraid of what might happen to my mother, to our mother. Because our mother came across, because we lived on the Montgomery side of the Edmund Pettus Bridge. So she had to drive from, 2.5 miles into Selma to drop us off. And I always feared that they could be watching her drop us off. And I was afraid when she went back across that bridge by herself. But like Alice said, she was a fierce woman. She had 15 babies, never went to the hospital to have them. So a woman that can have 15 kids at home, she had no fear. But and then, too, there were more girls in it than boys. Because, as Alice said, the boys would fight back. We wouldn't fight back. But, you know, girls were sassy, too. They fought with their mouth.
Did that change the strategy because of that? I mean, how did that impact the strategy of the march itself? The boys always wanted to fight back, and the girls being more willing to take the blows. I mean, did that change, or did things just remain the same?
I don't think so. I'm thinking that was probably part of their strategy, because this was not the first time that John Lewis had put together, you know, mass meetings and marches and things like that. And for some reason, I think it was deliberate that there were more females than it was. And I'm thinking in my mind that they didn't think the females would get beat down like, you know, like the boys would.
Yeah, that could be one of the things, because like you hear in the movie also, there was a lot of us there, but only 300 got to march all the way because of the 2-lane highway. And I just don't know how we got selected out of the 300, and I said that, it's like, you know, we didn't volunteer, but, you know, they picked 300 people to march all the way. And here we were, you know, and there were a lot of people that were in the marches that their parents would not let them, and this is girls, would not let them march all the way. They did Bloody Sunday, but they would not let them march all the way to Montgomery. What they did was joined us at St. Jude. And there were so many people that joined us there. And they didn't spend those nights in those 3 campsites like we did. But some people could, some people couldn't. We have friends right now that still have ailments from being beaten. You know, thank God I only got really the tear gas and the cow part, which goes away. And there's some people got hit with clubs that has not gone away at this age. And thank you so much for, you know, planning this and having this, and want somebody to know. We really appreciate it. The number is not going to make a difference, because you can be able to show it later and encourage children. The last children that you saw in that movie was a minister that brought them from Orlando, Florida. And when these boys came on the trip, and I had the privilege of escorting them through Selma, Montgomery, Tuskegee, and she immediately after they took the books out of the schools in Orlando, started searching for money to get them to get some education of what was going on. And when you saw those 4 boys talking, they weren't talking like that when we started the trip. The things they said, and the initial conversation is, I feel sorry for Miss Alice, but I don't think that'll happen to us. So that was a lesson we had to straighten out for them. You know, you won't get the tear gas, you won't get beaten, but you'll get a gun. You'll be shot in a minute. And, you know, it'll happen in a different way. And after they went through all of those museums and heard stories about what happened, taking them to the bridge, going under the bridge where I ran to, they had a story before they left. They had a story to tell before they left. And Daniel here was doing a lot of interviewing with them. The minister, every night we came in, she would not let them go to their room before they sit down, and she debriefed them, is what she called it. She debriefed them of what they saw that day. They had to tell us something and what they learned. And that was very interesting. We sitting on the floor in the lobby at a hotel, and we sitting there in Embassy Suites, you know how I go. We sitting there in the midst of this discussion, there's somebody shooting ice down at her, you know, right in Montgomery, shooting ice down at us. And, you know, we had people in there to run and take off to try to, Charles was one of them, I don't know how fast he ran, but yeah, on our heads. Yes, from up like the 5th floor. Yeah, we were down there deeper. She had to find different location, and she found one like back in a corner, but that was wide open. So when that happened and they were throwing ice down on our heads. Yeah, I mean, you know, and those were, we want to believe there were other kids. We don't know who it was. To this day, we don't know who it was.
And one of the things that I want to say, and then Mickey has a question, is that today people have a tendency to minimalize and trivialize the violence. As if to say, I mean, there's even one person that said, well, when they left to go and march and protest, they weren't going to die. No, they weren't, but they were going, knew some people had died. I mean, I mean, if you know that people have lost their lives doing it, every time you go out there, you go at the risk of your life. You go knowing I'm putting my life on the line. And so when we talk with these kids and we put those slides up on the screen and we show them the Medgar Evers and the Schwerner Goodman and Cheneys and Viola Liuzos and these folk and the Jimmy Lee Jackson, who was the tipping point. These folks put their lives on the line. This was not nothing, it wasn't a small thing, and it wasn't something done where they were out there, you know, just having fun. They knew their lives were on the line in order for us, and not just on the line, but folks that lost their lives, in order for us to obtain the right to vote.
We were in Selma also, what, a month ago? We marched in Selma. Call to action. We were down in Selma for that. We marched there. We didn't have any police protection or anything for that. But I thought it was a very well organized, what they did there, because we were getting ready to march from another church across the bridge. And the leader came up and she said, I need 5 men to stand on this side of the bridge and keep people from driving through, and I need 5 to stand on the other side of the bridge. It worked perfect. There were so many people, and I don't know if you saw, there wasn't as many in Selma as it was in Montgomery, but I'm sure you saw the hundreds of thousands of people that were in Montgomery. So we're still out there. We're still marching. We're still putting our lives on the line because, you know, we don't know what lies behind the trees or the cars.
One thing I wanted to say about that march, because I'm thanking Pastor so much for attempting to do this, it was based on clergy. Tabernacle is a smaller church. It couldn't hold a whole lot of people, but it was packed with clergy. And they wore their you could recognize that they were in the ministry. And they walked that way from the church and joined the rest of us at the bridge and walked across the bridge. And it was a beautiful sight that they all, you know, because we had clergy back then too, but they didn't stand out like they took lead. They took the lead. They took the lead, and we followed. And they started the meeting at Tabernacle and brought it on to us, and we took it on across, and a lot of them didn't go to Montgomery, but I hear, and we didn't either, because to go across that bridge and walk back, at this age, that's all I can do. But but they said there were a lot in Montgomery too. We saw the pictures and everything, so it never is don't ever think that doesn't make a difference. I don't have, and I know, Charles, that you can show this to, you know, bait the children, have them party for them, and give them something to eat. But they'll watch it, just like those boys that I work with. By the end of what they hear and what they see, something change in their mind. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I've been lucky enough to be part of a lot of these events, and you just briefly touched on what my question is. I have heard everything from your childhood and leading up to the marches, but I haven't heard anything about what you encountered when you got to Montgomery, when the march made it to Montgomery. Was there anything to remark on that happened at the capital of Alabama where all this was centered? What was your reception? What was it, good, bad? What stood out about what happened when you finally arrived?
The reception for us was basically at St. Jude. So at that time, when we got ready to march on at the Capitol, there were so many stars there, we were pushed to the back. So our usefulness was done for us at that time. They had no more use for us because we did what we were set out to do, march from Selma to Montgomery. Then all of the stars, they came into town, met us in Montgomery, they were in the lead, we were pushed behind.
And I have said something about Mickey. I don't know why you haven't heard it, but I didn't want to talk to nobody. I removed myself from the group. I went and sat on the bench that were picking us up to take us home. And that's when Viola got killed, because she was transporting. They had buses, and she had her car. I was just sitting waiting for my turn. I didn't want to step in that arena where they were rejoicing and have a good time for some reason. I was ready. I felt I had done what I came to do, and they celebrated. That was okay, but I had no celebration in me at that point. And, you know, I was rewarded with the sight to see the neighborhood go vote and everything, but I didn't attempt to go to hear nobody sing or nothing. We had some on the trail that stopped at the camps and, you know, and sang and entertained, but at that point, I had no interest in joining the crowd at all. And when I tell people, I sat on a bench where my back was turned. There was nobody that was really interested in seeking us out, and I was not interested in being sought out.
Now I understand. Thank you. Now I'm almost sorry I asked.
Denise told me to write. We did get awarded the Congressional Award, Medal of Honor for the foot soldiers and the voters' rights. One side is that. And I did get to go to Washington, not to receive it myself because there were many soldiers in there, and Reverend Reed from Selma was there, and John Lewis was there, but Reverend Reese was a strong figure when we were demonstrating everything. He did the honor to receive it in honor of the foot soldiers, which supposed to be somewhere in Selma. I don't know where they even have that because they haven't finished the museum after all this time, so I don't know where it lies at this time. But we were able to get replicas of that Congressional Gold Medal. So that was an honor, and that was later on, and when things had calmed down, and we had to go to Washington to do that. So in that, I don't remember in that film, is there some picture of that or anything, but that was an honor to go and do that with other foot soldiers that I didn't even know, you know, that they lived in different parts of the world now. I met some from Texas and all other parts that came in, and that was like not too many years ago that they did that. So I think I can't remember who was in the White House at that time, but
when the Congressional Medal of Honor was issued, I know that, oh wow, what's his name? I believe Obama was president, and it was Paul Ryan.
Ryan is the one that
issued it because he was
Ryan was the one that was in
our
meeting. Yes, you're right. Yeah, so that's how much I remember about that.
What a joy. Okay. Before we go to our next question, I always like to get the perspective from the production perspective. And so I have a question for Daniel. And I just want you to talk to us about the project itself. What made you want to get involved with the project? And just, talk to us about, how it developed for you.
Hello, so I'm Daniel. I directed the film. To go right to your question, I mean, I got involved initially in the capacity of some of these events, but there was always the plan to eventually turn this into something more of a film that would help to tell their story. And I was initially just struck by, the story itself, the fact that you hadn't spoken for so long, really gave it this additional gravity. That it's like what had transpired was something that you had, that you had buried or you'd not been listened to for all this time. But I knew the basic facts of the history. I knew about the main marches, about Bloody Sunday and Turnaround Tuesday and the March to Montgomery. What I didn't know about was all the stuff before. I didn't know anything about like all those other marches and all the arrests and like the prison camp and sort of the way that the organization had happened, and to see it all. And usually the way this story is told is through the sort of kind of great man view of history. So you're focusing on Martin Luther King, you're focusing on John Lewis, the kind of people at the forefront. And to see this story through the eyes of very young women along the way who were really doing all the same things and putting their bodies on the line and putting their lives and like up at the front of this fight. To me, the perspective of these big historical events, like through their eyes, was incredibly compelling. And the other aspect of it is because of going to these events and where they speak to young people, and you get to hear like them and connecting with the newest generations. That's always been very powerful, because you start out with a bunch of people in a room who maybe got ushered there on a bus or something, or have been brought, maybe that wasn't their idea to be there, basically. And they go from sort of that mode into engagement and into sort of, I even watched it happen a lot of times, where these students become very, very gathered up in the story and very moved, and I would say even motivated, to maybe do something about it. And I hope that that's what we're trying to do with the project overall, basically. One thing I do want to say is that like the film is not finished. This is our second screening, and when it goes online, the one that'll be available to like share and watch with people will be about a month from now, July 17th, right? And so there's a lot of refinement and detail work and illustration. The graphics are going to change. I mean, for instance, like that, like the Congressional Medal of Freedom. That's not noted in the film, but like I think that some kind of a text heading, something in the credits. It's like we should be, there's a lot of things we want to kind of squeeze in. We're trying to keep it right now. The length is designed for like a television broadcast. It's 26 minutes. That it's like kind of what will fit into like a PBS time slot basically. There may be a longer version a little bit later on, but that's sort of the plan with the film. I'm just really honored and grateful to be able to help tell this story, and I think it's just one that people should hear, and especially young people, especially as we turn into what will be I think very tumultuous midterm season, to put it very lightly. Yeah.
Tumultuous indeed.
I am so honored to hear you ladies. My mom, I'm grateful to have heard the stories as a child. My mom was in Montgomery, and at the time had the march. Then she was 18 years old, and she walked that march, but she got water hosed down by fire hydrants. And so she told the story, her and my father both. My father's from Mississippi. And so, of course, then, you couldn't be out after 6 or 5 and stuff like that. You couldn't travel Highway 20 after dark. And so I heard the stories, and I share the stories today with the kids at my school. We just finished a series at school last month on civil rights and voting, and how women are it's so important for us to vote. And the kids were so enthused and interested in what happened back then that we did a whole story. For the whole month, we talked about civil rights. We talked about John Lewis. We talked about Frederick Douglass. We talked about all the civil rights people that helped make this movement, and still is making movements today. And so the kids went home and told their parents. And so they wanted to come down to Detroit. These kids don't even live in Detroit. Some live in Southfield, some live in Dearborn. They've never been downtown to the railroad. They've never seen the statues downtown at Hart Plaza. They've never been to First Institutional Church downtown in Greektown. Haven't been to the tunnels. They didn't even know there was a tunnel under the water that goes from Detroit to Canada that their grandparents and great-grandparents traveled. And so these kids are excited now. They want to see these things. And so I'm just glad to be a part of education and still trying to tell a story and tell what I've heard my parents tell me, I'm trying to tell them. So I thank you, ladies. I'm trying to continue it.
Thank you for keeping the word going.
And hopefully this documentary will,
This is how this whole thing started from the beginning, and where that name came from, because he started on a book, and I'm saying I'm waiting for the book.
I was waiting for more information, but
well, I started with the book, and I was going to turn it over to him, and he took too long, so I got my pages back.
I started the book, and I got to a certain point, and I said, well, this is about 2 sisters, so I needed information from the other sister. And then when it didn't come, I said, okay, well, let me focus on the documentary. And so that's all I got. That's all I got. but I do want to, yes, I do want to say that I hope that the documentary will be something that you add to your catalog as far as helping to tell that story, because this is why we created it, so that it would be something that people could add, even in school. And we've approached some schools. We have even Eastern Michigan University that said that they're going to take some of our programming and add it into their syllabus for their students. And so this is what all of this is about. It's about developing more tools that will assist people in telling the story, and at the end of the day, mobilizing more foot soldiers where we can minimally, take our feet to the polls. Your soul will go with you if you take your feet. Your soul will go with you if you take your feet to the polls. Oh, you took the mic. I thought you were about to say something. Are there more questions? Anyone else have any questions? We do have another slide that I want to bring up, and I wasn't sure whether I was supposed to or not, so I just left it in there. So if I get in trouble, I'll just have to live with it. And what this slide is, it is a QR code, and we are looking for feedback from people who view the documentary, and I'm not sure at what point we're going to cut this off, but in the survey that comes up, it is also the opportunity for the audience that's exposed to this to become a part of this film and what it becomes. Because one of the things in the survey are options on what the eventual title will become. And it's not to say that the title will be different. What it is right now is one of the options. But it is now entitled 3 Marches, 2 Sisters, 1 Bridge. But we are taking in information for people who would like to become, this is your opportunity to, again, become a part of this film. And it also asks you for other forms of input as well. And so as it develops, you all, if you take this survey, will become a part of what the film actually will eventually become when we look at it and say, okay, it's done. It's done. Do you all have any closing remarks, the 3 of you, that you'd like to make?
No, I just, again, like to say thank you, and I know you've been here for a while, and we appreciate you taking the time just to look at it and continue to show it. Thank you.
Absolutely not. It's your house. I mean,
No. First of all, we want to say, give a round of applause. I know we're a small number, but a round of applause to our panelists and to Charles. But I want to say this, and I want to say this, first of all, I'm sorry that we didn't have as many people present here today, but it's so deeply on my heart to make sure we get a fuller attendance. So I want to invite you all back on our 5th Sunday in August during the 10 o'clock a.m. service. And this will be the feature presentation for us on that Sunday. I think this is too important not to expose many people, children, and they need to hear your stories. They need to see your stories. And so I want to invite you back on August, which I think is the 31st, 10 a.m., and you all will be the main presenters on that Sunday morning. It's just too important not to pass this up, and we certainly want to make this as important an opportunity for people to see this and hear it.
And I will say, I can't commit for my aunts. One's in Atlanta, the other one's in Cincinnati, but if nothing else, maybe we can show it and bring them in virtually, and I can be here in person if that will work, but we'll talk about how we can make that happen. But we definitely, I mean, I don't think there's any disagreement that that's something that we want to make it happen. But before we close, we did have gift bags for our sponsors at the premiere, and so I bought one of the bags for you, Pastor, for hosting us today. And in the bag, you get there's a T-shirt. It's all memorabilia. It's also a chocolate bar. And it has the image on the chocolate bar and the shirt and this coffee mug of the documentary premiere, just as you saw it on the last slide that will be coming up. We brought you that, and a nice brown bag with our logo on it. This you can keep. The rest will go to your wife. Can we go ahead and get that last slide up? And we're going to go ahead and close out. There we go. You had a choice of color. Thank you all very much.